Gary Hart. Welcome aboard, Senator. How you doing?
Thank you. I'm doing well. Thank you very much.
Nice to see you here. Listen, I want to start off by showing you, I hope you can see this, it's a headline from the Montreal Gazette from September 6, 2001, 5 days before we were attacked, and it says, "Terror risk real, Hart, thousands in U.S. will die." No wonder Joe Lieberman called you the Paul Revere of our age. You were the guy who said the terrorists are coming, because you were part of this Hart-Rudman committee that put out this report. Tell us how that committee came into being, what it said, and what has been done about it since.
First of all, there were 13 others, so it shouldn't be personalized. 7 Democrats and 7 Republicans appointed in the fall of 1998 by then-President Clinton with the concurrence of the congressional leadership to do something that hadn't been done since 1947, and that is a complete review of U.S. national security, in this case post-Cold War. And we were to report to the next president of the United States, whomever that might be, which we did January 31st, 2001. And although he would not see us personally, we met with senior cabinet officials. We urged them to create a Department of Homeland Security because we had concluded 2 years before that the nation was going to be attacked by terrorists and that thousands of Americans would die.
Why do you think people didn't listen?
Well, in this case, it wasn't just the president and the administration. It was, by and large, most of the American media, including, unfortunately, such stalwart papers as the New York Times. I think in the case of the administration, it's clear from Mr. Clark and others that they were preconditioned to think primarily about Saddam Hussein for complicated reasons of their own. And this message just came across their bow at a time and in a way that they were totally unexpecting and didn't know how to deal with it.
You mentioned the media. There was a big story in the press this week, but it wasn't very much in the press. High-level officials in Britain, Pakistan, and our own Senator Charles Schumer here of New York State are all saying that the White House compromised a very big sting operation because they blabbed to the press that we caught this al-Qaeda operative named Mohammed Khan. Now, this is the first guy, this Mohammed Khan, that we flipped. He was working as a double agent. This was our Muslim Donnie Brasco, our Huggy Bear. We finally got a guy on the inside, and they blabbed. Someone in the White House leaked this so they could say to the public, hey, we got one. Now, my question to you is, why wasn't this a bigger story in the press? And why isn't, yet again, anyone accountable in our government for this?
I really don't have a clue on the first score. There are transitions in the media I don't quite understand. Of course, some of the major papers are now doing kind of retrospectives on how they missed the story in Iraq, or should put it the other way, how they printed the wrong story consistently, that Iraq was a threat to us, which it was not. In terms of accountability, I think this is one of the great mysteries of the last 3 or 4 years. 3,000 Americans died 3 years ago, and no one lost his or her job over it. A president who says that he is a strong president, and those around him say he is, did not fire anyone. Either he was misled, in which case somebody should have been fired, or he misled us, in which case he should be fired.
Okay. I would support the second proposition. John Kerry this week, the contender here, said something that I found very puzzling. He said that knowing what he knows now, he still would have given Bush the authority to go into Iraq. Now, I understand why President Bush has to be Bush the Resolute and never admit he was wrong. But why? Now, you're an advisor to the Kerry campaign on foreign affairs. Why is John Kerry taking this position? Because certainly what he knows now should lead him in the opposite direction.
I did not, unfortunately, have a chance to discuss this personally with Senator Kerry. There were some discussions that I listened in on about this response. I was personally against the war and advised against it, advised against voting for it. I think in his defense, his position is that he voted for a resolution which authorized the president as a last resort, based on the intelligence that Senator Kerry was given by the president, to wage war in the national security interest.
But that was then. He's saying knowing what he knows now, and what he knows now is that the intelligence was faulty, Saddam Hussein was not a threat, that we would inflame the entire Muslim world by doing this. I just don't get it. I don't get this man not being able to say, I am clearly different from my opponent. Why does he want to take the old Al Gore tack of saying, I'm just like him?
I think that question would best be directed to Senator Kerry. I believe...
Yes, I'm getting mad at you, and I shouldn't really be doing that.
That's all right. We all do our best.
Let me ask you about the new guy that the president has appointed for the CIA, Porter Goss. This man said he was head of the committee that was looking into the CIA. He said the CIA is ignoring its core mission. He said it's in dysfunctional denial of any need for corrective action, to which George Tenet at the time said is not, basically. People have criticized Porter Goss as too political, but don't we want a guy who's this critical of the CIA?
Well, I think the real question is the question of politicization. It shouldn't happen, and I think it is too bad, even though he was a former agent, that the president appointed a political figure. It shouldn't be that way. But there's back to the issue of accountability. The question is, why isn't Congress being held accountable here also, including the Senate and House oversight committees, one of which Congressman Goss chaired? Congress is itself pretty dysfunctional on intelligence issues. There are 60 or 70 or 80 committees and subcommittees that claim some turf here. And while Congress is falling all over itself to reform the intelligence community, it has not done one thing to reform itself. And the Hart-Rudman Commission made as one of its serious recommendations that Congress itself, starting in 2001, completely overhaul its committee system to be functional in the modern age. And among those overhauls were the oversight committees. So Congress itself bears a great deal of culpability here, and I would think Congressman Goss would be part of that culpability.
All right, last question. You think we're going to get hit again?
Yes.
And will that change things? What will it take to make people not act business as usual?
Well, right now, it seems to me people in Washington are not acting as business as usual. But in the heat of the election year, they're probably going to do this job wrongly, and we will pay the consequences for the next 3 or 4 or 5 decades.
Well, I mean, Senator, isn't acting in an election year, like the election is more important than anything else, especially our safety, business as usual?
Intensified, cubed, I would say.
Okay. Well, I thank you for being here. I'm a longtime fan. Good to see you on the scene. Thank you. Senator Gary Hart. Thank you.